Hey folks, my name is Alex, and in this video we're going to work on the CreateEmployee function and use Prisma to create records in our database. Let's jump into it. The first thing that we'll need to do is scaffold the function using the Azure Functions CLI. So on a new terminal window, ensure that you're in the API directory and create a new function using the funcNew command with the name CreateEmployee using the HTTP trigger template and an anonymous auth level. The CLI creates a new folder called CreateEmployee with two files, a function.json file, that's the configuration file for the function, and an index.js that will contain the logic for the function. Open the function.json file and make a few adjustments. Update the default method to post, and then add a route property right after the methods to point the function to employees, and finally update the name property from res to $return. Next, navigate to the index.js file and clear the default contents inside the function. Before we write any code, let's add some pseudocode in form of comments to guide us in the implementation. We expect that the function will receive data for creating an employee inside the request body. We'll then add a check to make sure that the employee doesn't exist using the employee registration. And then if the employee doesn't exist, we'll create a new record in the database. We'll then import the Prisma and Error utilities from the shared folder at the top of the file, which we'll use in just a moment. And then inside the exported function, add a try-catch statement. The function's logic, like the checks and the database queries, will be handled inside the try, and the uncaught errors will be taken care of inside the catch. Next, destructure the name, job role, salary, and employee registration from the request body. And then we'll add a query to first check if an employee already exists in our database with the registration number from the request body. And in here, we'll use the employee.findUnique method from Prisma, add curly brackets inside it, add a filter using the where property, and pass in the employee registration inside the filter. If the employee exists, we'll use a handle error utility to return a status code of 409, meaning there's a conflict, and an error message stating that the employee exists. And if the employee doesn't exist, we'll use the employee.create method from Prisma, and then add a data property that's also an object, and then pass the values from the request body inside it. Once the query is done executing, we'll return a status code of 201, meaning it's been created, and the employee record inside the responses body. And finally, if the function runs into an uncaught exception, we'll log a generic message and also log the error and return a status code of 500 and the error in the response using the handle error utility function. Let's now run the functions locally and test out the CreateEmployee. Open your terminal and start the server using funcstat, and then you should see the CreateEmployee function successfully running. Now, in my working directory, I have an api.http file that contains a sample post request to the employee's route, and also a sample request body with a name, job role, salary, and employee registration in JSON format. I'll go ahead and click send to send the request, and we get the created employee and the status code of 201. If we make this request again, we should receive a status code of 49. That seems like it's working correctly. Let's finally query for all employees using the Azure SQL Query Editor to confirm that the data was successfully persisted. Click Run. We can see the employee record that was created in the database. Let's recap what we covered in this video. We created the CreateEmployee function, and inside the function, we added a query to check whether an employee exists by the employee registration number. And if the employee didn't exist, the record would be added to the database. We also added some error handling to our function to take care of any uncaught exceptions. And after that, we tested out the function using the REST client VS Code extension. Finally, we queried the data using Azure SQL Query Editor to confirm that the data was successfully created. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.